You never know where God's going to bring
Yeah.
you. You just never know. When I left psychiatry, I was somewhat devastated. I was really depressed. My vascular physician said, "We're having so much trouble controlling your clotting that you need to get your affairs in order." It was really a rough time. I never thought I'd develop a second career that would be this much fun, and it leaves me time during the day for prayer, right? And in the evening, when I'm pumping my leg, because I have to pump the good leg to bring the swelling down, that's when I can get to do my writing or my research.
Mm.
So you just never know what God's got in store for you.
Well, I'd love to go back in time. Our show, the Eternal Optimist podcast, loves to take a look at people who, in the eyes of many, might be successful. And in any successful person's journey, it may look really easy from the outside, but we all know if you're successful that you're like a duck underwater. Like you're always moving, and there's always something that's been happening. And I'd love to start with something that's been challenging for you in your career or in your life, Lou, if we may. And you can start like right now in present time, or you can go back to as far back as childhood if you'd like. But what's something that's been challenging for you?
Well, I mean, it started out challenging. I was premature, and they told my dad that it's okay. My mother can still have more children.
Wow.
Implying that this one wasn't going to make it. And I survived that. But the one of the biggest challenges was um, I was a practicing psychiatrist on Staten Island for a while, and then I moved back to New Jersey where I grew up. And I developed a clotting disorder, had massive pulmonary emboli, and then developed post-phlebitic symptoms. That's where my legs swell and I'm in pain all the time. And I left psychiatry. They told me to get my affairs in order because I kept getting recurrent blood clots and pulmonary emboli. And they just figured they weren't sure why they were occurring because I didn't have any of the usual clotting disorders. And so I left practice. And then eventually, I had been hit by a car when I was in medical school, and I had an operation on my foot. Eventually, because of the clotting disorder and the venous insufficiency, the foot started to break down because there wasn't good blood flow through it. And then eventually I had to get the foot amputated. And so I got an amputation on my left leg, and I had been out of work for almost 10 years. So I lost 10 of the most productive years of my life. During that time, I wrote a few books. I wrote The Last Gift of the Magi, but I didn't like it, and I couldn't get it published because my publishers didn't want a Christmas story that involved Jesus or the Magi.
What? Huh. Okay.
You heard that correct. My regular publishing company, companies, and I use big ones. It was William Morris, Simon and Schuster, Beyond Words, Rizzoli in Italy. Had one book published only in Italian, and they wanted unusual relationships or interesting traditions in a novel. They didn't want a story about Jesus because this is really religious historical fiction, right? And what I was trying to do with this book is teach about the mentoring process, teach about character development and discovering your flaws and looking at virtues. And I set it aside because I couldn't get it published. And then occasionally I would try to tweak it a little bit, but there were always certain things wrong. So I took some courses in theology. I got more prayerful. I started going to adoration on a daily basis after I became a sleep specialist. And I finally was able to address what I felt were the defects in the book. And Mark asked me to publish it. He said, why don't we publish it? I think if you're happy with the way it came out, we can make it work. And then we published it, and the cover had an error on it, and it delayed it, so it didn't make much of an impact Christmas last year. But we did sell a number of books, And now I'm starting to get people contact me and telling me that they're in recovery and they're reading it and they really like it. That it resonates with them. The camel going out into the desert, having to learn how to not drink and how to work with a mentor, which would be like the sponsor in recovery. And right now I'm working on the sequel.
Awesome. Awesome.
So the sequel's almost done.
Well, you've shared a number of places we could go so far. I love to ask, and a lot of the research that I had done around you had come back to your expertise in the sleep field. So I'd love for
Right.
you to share, why sleep specialist? Why did that become something that was passionate for you?
Yeah. Okay. So um, when I got my leg amputated, or just before I got my leg amputated, I became really sedentary because the foot had, instead of being planted, it turned sideways. And I was almost walking on the side, and it was in tremendous pain every day. And I gained weight. I developed apnea. And so, out of curiosity, I started going to lectures on apnea and started doing CMEs online um, just to learn about it. And then I decided, you know what? I could probably, after I got my leg amputated, I could probably go do a fellowship in sleep apnea. And so I went up to Wayne State in Detroit. I did a 1-year fellowship and became a sleep specialist.
Wow.
And it's been fun ever since. It's a great field. It's a new field, so there's always new discoveries. I became somewhat of an expert in narcolepsy. I had a family member that had narcolepsy, so I was always more curious about that disease than all of the others. And it was just a great thing. A lot less stress than psychiatry. Nobody ever commits suicide because they don't like their CPAP machine.
So about 20 years ago, and since then, you right before you had it amputated, you said that you started to gain a little weight, you were in incredible pain, and you started to develop apnea.
Yeah, I went up to 270 pounds, almost 270 pounds.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So you make a hormone when you're sleeping that allows you to feel full when you eat. If you sleep long, you make a lot of it, so you eat less. But you're awake less, you need less calories. That's how God controls how much food you can eat the next day. If you sleep short, you're awake longer, you need more calories. It takes you longer to get full. And when you have apnea, you don't make enough of the hormone because you're really not sleeping.
Well, did you develop this skill and this expertise in being a sleep specialist as a result of starting to feel these conditions to kind of regain your health, or was there something else you were passionate about because you just
No, I wanted to get back to work. I lost 10 years, 10 most productive years of my life, and I didn't want to go back to
yes
psychiatry because I had chronic pain. And I just didn't think that listening to patients while I'm in chronic pain was a smart idea.
yeah
It left me a little more irritable than most. And I wanted to do something. I was a respiratory therapist before I went to medical school. So working with the CPAP machines was like second nature.
no I sit here as an interviewer, and there are just so many directions to go. I wonder if there's a specific direction that you might want to take our discussion around your career and your lessons learned and anything that's important to you. Because
Well, you never know where God's going to bring
yeah,
you. You just never know. When I left psychiatry, I was somewhat devastated. I was really depressed. My vascular physician said, "We're having so much trouble controlling your clotting that you need to get your affairs in order." So it was really a rough time. I never thought I'd develop a second career that would be this much fun, and it leaves me time during the day for prayer, right? And in the evening, when I'm pumping my leg, because I have to pump the good leg to bring the swelling down, that's when I can get to do my writing or my
mm,
research.
mm.
So you just never know what God's got in store for you.